right here. Her name is Wendy. She trying to get all her men, the men in her life, fat. This freckle-faced white girl right here, Wendy. Have you ever dated Wendy before? Now, me and Wendy been talking for a while now. Me and Wendy been talking for a while now. See, Wendy is a narcissist. I just want to let y'all know. Wendy, this woman right here, is a narcissist. She is a narcissist, and she do not care about none of the men that come into her life. My mama told me about Wendy a long time ago, but no, I didn't listen. No, I didn't listen. You know what I did? I allowed Wendy to come in and feed me one day, and I ain't never been the same since. And my mama, my grandmama, she told me, she said, boy, you gotta watch out for them girls, especially them girls with them old school white women names. Wendy. Never trust a girl with a old school white woman named Wendy. So I just want to let you know, all the women that Wendy, all the men and women that Wendy done had in her life, she done got them fat. She be trying to do that to bring they ego down. They, what they call it when a person is, when they really ain't, feeling they self that good. You know what I'm talking about? What do they call it when a person is depressed and they ain't feeling they self that good, and they be having people in their life always trying to talk down on them to make them feel bad about themselves. What do you call that? You know what I'm talking about? You don't know what I'm talking about, huh? You can't relate to what I'm talking about. Come on in. Now I got 5 people. I should at least have 5 likes. Ain't no way I got 5 people watching me and I ain't got at least 5 likes. Especially for what I got tonight. Tonight, it's gonna be one of these meals that Wendy, this lady always trying to get all her boyfriends and the dudes she mess with fat. Can anybody relate to what I'm talking about? If you can't relate to Wendy, the lady that I'm talking about, if you ain't never had to deal with this lady before, then y'all don't know what I'm talking about. But we finna come on in. I want y'all to come in and watch with Wendy how she gonna try to get me fat. Come on in, push that like button. Yeah, I'm just getting started, y'all. My day we ain't even got it started yet. I got something I want to talk to y'all about. Are y'all with me or y'all against me? If y'all don't like me, then y'all ain't gotta say nothing to me. But if y'all with me, I want y'all to stay with me. Ride this wave. This is an emotional roller coaster ride. We finna eat. Boy, our economy is getting out of control. I went to the store. Snag, what you gonna do? I went to the store. Went to Wendy. Got me something to eat. How much do you think this was worth? How much do you think I paid for this meal at Wendy's? I got 2 baked potatoes, bacon and cheese baked potatoes, a 6-piece chicken nugget, 6-piece chicken nugget with little chili. I got one with chili, one with ain't, and I got 6-piece nuggets, and I got a what's that? A Frosty. How much you think I paid for that meal? A lot of people think food is cheap nowadays. Man, this food, I paid $15 for all this. $15. I could have put $5 more with it and went to Chili's and got 2 for 20. 2 meals for the price of one damn potato. They must have known I really wanted. They must have known I really wanted. How y'all doing? Y'all good? Y'all blessed? Hidden Valley Ranch. Got me some Oreos to go with that Sunday. Got me some salt to go on this potato. They don't give you no salt, no pepper. Spread some butter on this thing. This thing juicy. I like for mine to be very juicy and unhealthy. Gotta put butter on the potato, on the bacon. Gotta get butter all on the potato and the bacon. Some people don't know how to really get their stuff up. Gotta put some salt on it, because these things don't be having no salt on it. I like sea salt. Sea salt ain't as bad as the other salt they be using. Now we're gonna put some sour cream on this thing. This usually set it off right here. Sour cream on it. I wish I had some guacamole. I gotta go get me. I'm gonna go buy me some fresh guacamole tomorrow. Now this is the trick that set off a Wendy's baked potato. Some of their chili. Pop some of their chili on top of it. Just like that. Now this right here is gonna be the bomb. Loaded baked potato, sour cream, chili. They say I eat like a fat person. Like I had a fat girlfriend. Delicious. How y'all doing tonight? Y'all blessed? Y'all highly favored? I am. I ain't worried about nobody. I ain't talking about nobody. I need some more salt on this thing. That will do it. Pop some of this hidden ranch. Some of that hidden ranch dressing. Some hidden ranch. Some ranch chicken nuggets. Shake that ranch up on them. You want ranch to get all on them. You want that Hidden Valley to be all on them nuggets. All right. Something to calculate right, but don't worry about getting to that. Ranch, pop them in that barbecue sauce. Delicious. Barbecue ranch, with the chili cheese, the mashed potato. Mm. Mm. This thing popping right here. Mm. A combination of barbecue sauce with that ranch. Mm. Mm. Now that's good. How y'all doing? Push that like button. Show me some love. If you don't love me, I understand. If you don't like me right now, I understand. See, it would be somebody in the world that's mad at me because I'm eating right now, and they not. Oh. Mm, mm. And this is just a healthy, juicy, carbohydrated Ohio potato. Mm, mm. Nobody ever thought in a million years that a potato would be so fulfilling. Oh my God. Delicious. How y'all doing? Push that like button. Show me some love. This some real bullshit. Wanna know why? Because how you doing? You saying good morning, I'm about to say good night. Mmm. That shit bust. Have you ever ate Oreo cookies with a straw? Like, not like you gotta juggle this. I know I ain't gonna be able to do that. It just ain't gonna work. You might say I'm always enhancing and infusing stuff. Well, you ain't never had Oreo cookie? Inside of a Wendy's Frosty? How y'all doing? No, Jack, I ain't cooking. Oh, yeah. This is supposed to be ice cream. But I guess I waited too late. Now I gotta eat it like a milkshake. Say I can suck ice cream through a straw, right? I was told I can eat a pussy through a straw. That's a powerful man. Grand evening to you, brother, sister. Telling y'all, man, y'all need to watch out for these panties. You ever heard the train word for how you say the street terminology or the term word? I want to say term word. Oh my God. Boy, the nigga itis just kicked in on me. When I held my head up, I felt all that, just all that extra weight just drop down on my knees, man. You know what I'm talking about? I'm not the only one. telling you, man. That girl, white girl, Wendy, with them freckles. Every black man she ever got her hands on, she got his ass fat. What's going on, old timer? Just chilling, man. How you doing? What's up, Jed? Another day, another dollar. Blessed to be here. Man, it's a beautiful day out here. Anybody agree? It's a beautiful day, ain't it? If you disagree, then that means it's not that beautiful to you right now. He said it looks like night. What's the equivalent sentence that you can use to describe night and day? If you want to be technical about it, if you want to say it's a beautiful night, how would you say that? It was a beautiful day and a wonderful night. Especially if you get a chance to top it off just right. said, why the apron, Mr. Snaggabuzz? Well, in real life, I own a business. And my business is open to 11:30 p.m. 7 days a week. So I still have about 30 minutes technically still open with my business. So I'm wearing my uniform at my business, not at work, at my business. Just in case I go to work, I'll be able to. But the title of my occupation is on my apron. Thank you. Said much respect. Yeah, BMW, black man working. That's all. That's all I'm trying to do. Is work honest for my money and leave everybody else alone. Just mind my own business. Black man working. BMW. Yep, this is. Yep, I am ready to kick back, relax, chill. Y'all want to relax with me? I'm gonna show you how I get to chill and relax. Put my baby glasses on. It's the only thing I hate about this car. This is an old school manual car. Everything on this car is manual. The windows are manual. The seats are manual. The transmission is manual. Everything is manual. Like, that's it. Stand up is the best. Thank you. The locks are manual. You gotta lock all the doors manually. Whew. I can't wait till the Lord bless me with a little money so I can get a better car. But I am blessed to have a car. I thank God for giving me this car. As long as I got a car with locks and keys and all that, even though it's all manual, boy, do you know how hard it is for me to go up a hill and get stuck in traffic? My heart be panicking, the car be rolling back, and it just, oh my God. Oh God. Yeah, I already got me on road good. Good rolling. right, y'all here with me? Y'all still here with me? How y'all doing? Come on in, push that like button. Y'all chilling with Snack? Yeah, we just chilling.
At democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Al Jazeera is reporting Israel's killed more than 100 people in Lebanon so far today in a wave of extensive airstrikes, hitting more than 300 targets. Lebanon's health ministry reports the dead include children, women, and paramedics. More than 400 people have been wounded. Earlier today, Israel instructed residents of southern Lebanon to leave their homes if they live near any site used by Hezbollah. Israel sent text messages, made phone calls to tens of thousands of people in what Lebanese officials decried as a form of psychological warfare. Israel's also hacked into Lebanese radio stations. On Friday, Israel killed at least 45 people in a massive airstrike on a densely populated residential neighborhood of Beirut. The dead include 16 members of Hezbollah, including 2 senior commanders, Ibrahim Akil and Ahmed Wahbi. Lebanon's transportation minister, Ali Hamia, condemned the Israeli attacks.
The Israeli enemy, with all its continued crimes, with the excuse of pursuing Hezbollah, has targeted a residential compound. It has committed a massacre to a residential building against unarmed children, women at their homes. The Israeli enemy is taking the region to war.
Hezbollah responded to Friday's attack by firing a barrage of rockets into Israel, targeting an airbase and weapons factories. Meanwhile, former CIA Director and Defense Secretary Leon Panetta has accused Israel of committing an act of terrorism by rigging thousands of walkie-talkies and pagers that exploded in a coordinated attack last week that killed at least 37 people, injuring thousands in Lebanon. Panetta spoke to CBS News.
I don't think there's any question that it's a form of terrorism. This has gone right into the supply chain. Yeah. Right into the supply chain. And when you have terror going into the supply chain, it makes people ask the question, what the hell is next?
In Gaza, Israel's continuing to target schools and shelters housing displaced Palestinians. On Saturday, an Israeli attack on a school in Gaza City killed 22 people, including 13 children and 6 women. One of the victims was a 3-month-old baby. Survivors said there are no safe places to go in Gaza.
We got displaced and came to this school. I left from my house after it was targeted and my husband and my 2 children were martyred. And we came to this school and thought it was safe. We thought this was a safe place. Then they target us. Where are we supposed to go if at a school we're not safe? We got displaced 7 or 8 times and I'm all alone with my 2 remaining children.
An Israeli airstrike earlier today in Deir al-Balah killed a mother and 4 of her children. Meanwhile, heavy rain has flooded makeshift camps in Al-Mawasi and other areas of Gaza. Press freedom groups have condemned the Israeli military for raiding and shutting down Al Jazeera's Ramallah office in the occupied West Bank. Heavily armed Israeli troops were seen on live TV entering the office, confiscating equipment while ordering the office closed for 45 days. Israeli troops also tore down a poster of Shireen Abu Akleh, the Al Jazeera journalist, Palestinian-American, who was fatally shot by Israeli forces while covering a raid on Jenin 2 years ago. This is Al Jazeera's West Bank bureau chief, Walid Al-Omari.
This is a blatant attack on the Al Jazeera channel and the Al Jazeera network and those who are working with them, as well as on the freedom of speech and the task of delivering the truth. This is an attack that aims to obscure the truth.
The raid and closure comes months after Israel banned Al Jazeera from broadcasting inside Israel. In Sri Lanka, Anura Kumara Dissanayake was sworn in as president today, becoming the country's first leftist leader. He won Saturday's election after campaigning to renegotiate a deeply unpopular IMF bailout signed during Sri Lanka's worst economic crisis. He's a Marxist and former student leader who's vowed to fight corruption and anti-austerity measures.
We have a deep understanding that we have got a challenging country. Our politics must be cleaner than this. There is a need for a political culture that people expect. We will commit ourselves to that. The public have a very negative view of politicians and politics.
In the United States, voting for the presidential election began Friday in Virginia, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Voting rights advocates are expressing alarm after the Georgia State Election Board, which is controlled by Trump supporters, approved a new rule to require election workers hand count the number of ballots cast on election night in a move that could significantly delay the reporting of results. Critics include many top Republican officials in Georgia. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris has agreed to take part in a CNN presidential debate on October 23rd, but Donald Trump has not agreed to debate again. Over the weekend, Donald Trump campaigned in North Carolina, but he made no mention of the scandal involving his hand-picked candidate for North Carolina governor, the state's Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Last week, CNN revealed Robinson had described himself as a black Nazi on a pornographic website a decade ago. He'd also expressed support for reinstating slavery. Much of Robinson's senior campaign staff has resigned after he refused to drop out of the race. In other election news, the U.S. Supreme Court's declined a request to put Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein on the presidential ballot in Nevada. The Democratic Party had sued to keep Stein off the ballot for failing to submit the proper forms. In Sudan, the UN is calling for an immediate halt to intensified fighting in the western Darfur city of al-Fashir, which has been under siege by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces for 5 months. Fighters have targeted black Sudanese communities in al-Fashir as fears mount of more widespread ethnically motivated attacks. Famine's been declared in a refugee camp near al-Fashir amidst a spiraling humanitarian catastrophe. This is Martha Poby, Assistant Secretary General for Africa, speaking at the UN last week.
Even while millions of lives are at risk across Sudan, hundreds of thousands of civilians trapped in El Fasher are now at risk of the consequences of mass violence as fighting engulfs the city. The stakes could not be higher. The risk of the escalation of fighting, fueling a dangerous ethnic dimension of this conflict, is well known. So are the destabilizing effects for the entire region.
On Friday, a group of Democratic lawmakers sent President Biden a letter voicing concerns over the UAE's support of the RSF ahead of Biden's meeting today with the Emirati President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed at the White House. World leaders are gathering in New York for the United Nations General Assembly and the UN Summit of the Future. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres spoke on Sunday.
Conflicts are raging and multiplying, from the Middle East to Ukraine and Sudan, with no end in sight. Our collective security system is threatened by geopolitical divides, nuclear posturing, and the development of new weapons and theaters of war. Resources that could bring opportunities and hope are invested in death and destruction.
Ahead of the UN meetings, President Biden hosted the leaders of Australia, India, and Japan at his Delaware home for the final Quad summit of Biden's presidency. The meeting came just days after Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell testified that China's become, quote, the most significant challenge, unquote, the U.S. has ever faced. Climate Weeks kicked off here in New York, coinciding with the start of the UN General Assembly. On Friday, protesters took to the streets around the world to launch the global climate strike ahead of the UN meetings. This is 16-year-old Lena Goings, an organizer with Fridays for Future in New York.
Since Climate Week is coming up, we really want to keep our message on top of mind for everyone who's attending. We want to make sure that people are remembering justice, equity, and ending the era of fossil fuels. We cannot beat around the bush with this. We have to make sure that we are prioritizing real solutions, prioritizing communities.
The state of South Carolina executed Freddie Eugene Owens by lethal injection Friday. He'd been convicted of killing a convenience store clerk in 1997. Hours before the execution, Owens' co-defendant signed a statement saying Owens, who is black, was not at the store at the time of the shooting. In a statement, Owens' mother said, quote, the legal errors, hidden deals, and false evidence that made tonight possible should shame us all, unquote. It was the first execution in South Carolina in 13 years. And the site of the worst nuclear disaster in U.S. history, the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania, may reopen to help Microsoft fuel its artificial intelligence ambitions. The nuclear plant has been closed since 2019. The plant's owner, Constellation Energy, is seeking to reopen it by 2028 after Microsoft agreed to buy energy needed for its growing fleet of data centers powering its artificial intelligence operations. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.
We're coming on the air with the biggest escalation in 2 decades between Israel and Hezbollah and a very deadly day in Lebanon. Missiles raining down on both countries as people try to escape any way they can. We're going to take you live to the region and to the Pentagon as a new wave of troops heads to the Middle East. We're also live tonight in Alabama as police basically beg for any details on a possible murder-for-hire mass shooting that left 4 people dead, more than a dozen hurt. Where this new investigation stands tonight and what one of the survivors is now telling our team. Then a new state of emergency tonight in Florida, a storm that is getting bigger, faster, barreling toward the state, set to hit as a hurricane. We've got the forecast and the new update from the Hurricane Center in just a second. Plus, we're live in a town that's worried it could be the next Springfield, Ohio. Why Charleroi, Pennsylvania is finding itself the new target for right-wing attacks against Haitian immigrants. And in tonight's breakdown, a team on the verge of the history it never wanted. What White Sox fans are telling us with their ball club 1 loss away from being the Major League's worst team ever. That's later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight we start with a region teetering on the brink of an all-out war with the most serious escalation between Israel and Hezbollah we've seen in almost 20 years. Nearly 500 people killed today in Lebanon alone, with Israel dropping bombs there. Hezbollah retaliating, the deadliest day between them in this conflict so far. And yes, this is a dramatic spike in attacks. You see them here unfolding in real time. With the Pentagon announcing in just the last couple hours, it'll send more troops to the region on top of the 40,000 already there. Still, President Biden tonight says he's committed to calming things down. Watch this.
My team is in constant contact with their counterparts, and we're working to de-escalate in a way that allows people to return to their homes safely.
The State Department telling Americans in Lebanon to get out ASAP. And the Israeli Prime Minister saying this is not over yet, sending this message to people just across the border to the north. Watch.
Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously.
Israel says 1 million of its civilians are running to bomb shelters tonight. They're also asking thousands of people to evacuate from near the northern border with Lebanon, where more than 100,000 people have already been displaced. Today alone, more than 100 strikes from Lebanon landing in Israel in just the last 24 hours. Same time period, 1,300 attacks from Israel into Lebanon, according to the Israelis. That's about one every 60 seconds. In other words, from the time the show started until now. We've got team coverage. Courtney Kubi is standing by with the latest from the Pentagon. But I want to start with Hala Garani, live for us in Tel Aviv. Help us understand contextually where things stand in the Middle East right now. Is the war that started in Gaza nearly a year ago now spreading to Lebanon?
Well, from the Lebanese perspective, it has spread to Lebanon because by any measure, almost 500 people killed in a single day in Lebanon. That certainly is the highest death toll in a single day since 2006, possibly since the end of the civil war in that country several decades ago. Now, Lebanese people who are, generally speaking, quite resilient, they've weathered wars, they've weathered revolutions, port explosions, and a banking collapse. Tonight, we are hearing from our sources inside the country, they are greatly concerned that this could lead to an all-out conflagration between Hezbollah and Lebanon and Israel. Hezbollah, as you mentioned there, has launched about 150 rockets, but the pounding that southern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley are taking are causing mass casualties, and more than 1,600 people have been wounded in this. Now, we heard from President Biden say that they're in touch with their counterparts in Lebanon and in the region to try to de-escalate things, but the administration has been pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza and pushing for de-escalation around the Lebanon-Israel border now for many months and has been unsuccessful. And Benjamin Netanyahu, in addressing civilians in Lebanon, saying that this fight is not against them, but to get out of the way, is really not reassuring anyone there, because ordinary Lebanese civilians are saying, we're told to get out of the way, to not position ourselves close to Hezbollah weaponry. We don't know where that weaponry is. The sites are secret for a reason, and many people are saying they don't feel comfortable being anywhere in southern Lebanon or the Bekaa Valley right now. Hallie.
We'll talk through that, the conditions for people there, even as the Israeli Prime Minister is telling people in Lebanon, and I'm quoting him here, Israel's war is not with you, it's with Hezbollah.
Well, I guess one of the things that I've heard Lebanese people say is that is some of the rhetoric that Gazans heard at the beginning of the war after October 7th, after that terrible massacre here in Israel. They were told just evacuate areas where Hamas is operating and don't stand close to places where you might think that Hamas is storing weaponry. So that is why there is a lot of concern. And in fact, we've spoken to one father who went to his kid's school and said, I just can't risk keeping my child in school when there are all these bombs falling across southern Lebanon. And this father was in Beirut. Listen to what he said just a short while ago.
We're here because of the phone calls. They're calling everyone and threatening people by phone. So we're here to take my boy from school. The situation is not reassuring.
That's after the Israeli military called and left messages on people's cell phones, landlines, and also issued announcements on the radio, Hallie.
Hala Garani, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let me bring in Courtney Kubi now. Courtney, how significant is this move from the U.S. military to send additional troops to the Middle East?
So it's more symbolic at this point than it is significant. This is not a large number. It's a few dozen U.S. troops. But the reason that this matters right now, Hallie, is because it shows that the U.S. is concerned that this escalation of violence, this escalation of back and forth between Israel and Lebanese Hezbollah that we just heard from Hala about, there is a very real concern that it could continue to grow to the point where U.S. troops, where Americans may be put in harm's way and may have to flee the region. So the announcement came earlier today from Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder. He announced it to reporters this morning, saying that out of an abundance of caution, the Pentagon, the military had decided that they would send a small number of additional U.S. military personnel forward to augment forces already in the region. There are about 40,000 U.S. troops in the region right now, Hallie. That number has actually grown over the last several months, specifically since the last time that we saw a very high level of tension in the region in April. You'll recall then, of course, that Iran fired hundreds of projectiles towards Israel. U.S. and other allies were able to shoot the majority of those down before they actually impacted in the country. But after that, the U.S. has since then even added additional troops, primarily for force protection. But in the case of these few dozen troops that are going in, we don't have a lot of details about exactly when or where they're going. But in this case, it is more to be prepared should Americans have to flee the region and flee the violence, Hallie.
What would be the de-escalation off-ramp here, Courtney? Is there one?
There really, some sort of a ceasefire with Hamas. The bigger concern is the higher likelihood of an escalation ladder as opposed to a de-escalation. That's the problem, is everything seems to be leaning in that direction. I think that's why we're seeing this announcement out of the Pentagon today. One of the big questions still is, how does Iran respond to this? We heard today from Iranian officials, our colleagues were reporting out of New York, that they say Iranians still do not want conflict. But the question is, they obviously have a lot of control and sway over Hamas, over Hezbollah. How do they react as these two terror groups continue to come under fire from Israel, Hallie?
Courtney Kube, thank you very much for that. More to come, I know, on that front as the days and the weeks progress. To bring you back here to home, because police in Alabama are now offering $100,000 to anybody who can help them catch the killer behind what they think may have been a murder-for-hire hit. A plot that left 4 people dead in a mass shooting in Birmingham. It happened, you're seeing it here, outside this cigar lounge. This is in a popular, nightlife area on Saturday night. It's not too far from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. In addition to the 4 people killed, at least 17 others were hurt. With the city's mayor today saying it is all hands on deck at this point.
But I want to make myself very clear on what the priority is. It is to hunt down, capture, arrest, and convict the people who are responsible for this mass shooting.
Priya Sridhar is in Birmingham following this one for us. Talk to us about this investigation, because as this manhunt is happening for what police think may be multiple shooters, right, multiple suspects, there's still a lot of questions about the sort of targeted, quote-unquote, nature of this in the first place.
That's right, Hallie. And probably the biggest question right now is actually the identities of those suspects or persons of interest. As of the last press briefing, I asked the police chief, do you guys even know exactly who you're looking for? And he said, no, they don't at this point. You know, they're really relying on video surveillance from the neighboring businesses. As you mentioned, this is a very crowded area, but that is leaving a lot of people feeling sort of troubled in this area, that they haven't figured out just who it is just yet. They also are offering that $100,000 reward because they're hoping that somebody in the community has some information. Another challenge the police chief said that he faces here in Birmingham is this idea of an anti-snitch culture, that people don't necessarily want to rat out someone for fear of retaliation. But I also asked him, Hallie, why do we believe that this was a murder-for-hire plot? And he said that one of the 4 deceased victims who have been identified at this time, Anitra Holloman, a 21-year-old woman, Taj Booker, a 27-year-old man, Carlos McCain, a 27-year-old man, and Roderick Lynn Patterson, a 26-year-old man. One of those 4 was the intended target, and he believes that's because that person did have a criminal history, and he believes that the suspects were hired to murder that individual, Hallie.
Priya, you've been in Alabama, you've been on the ground since this shooting happened, and I understand that you had a chance to speak with one of the survivors who was there that night, who was shot. What do we know? What is he telling you?
Yeah, I spoke to a 24-year-old man, Hallie, who came to this hookah lounge behind me here with his high school class. They were actually having a reunion. He was standing in line, and he immediately started running when he heard those gunshots. Let's take a listen to what he told me.
The scene it replays in my head. It literally looked like a Friday the 13th scene, those images, and the people on the sidewalk who didn't even get to make it to the hospital, who didn't even have a chance, that's what keeps me up at night.
And so fortunately, Hallie, it's looking like he's going to make a physical full recovery. But as you heard just there, mentally, this is something that's probably going to haunt him for potentially the rest of his life.
Priya Sridhar live for us in Birmingham. Priya, thank you for being on top of this story for us. Former President Trump, in just the last few hours, is now accusing the Justice Department and the FBI of mishandling and downplaying that second assassination attempt against him, as a federal judge in this case rules that the suspect will stay in jail until his trial. It's coming as we're getting a look now at a whole bunch of court documents and new evidence, including a handwritten letter detailing this plot. You are looking at this court sketch from today. That's Ryan Ruth, who allegedly dropped off a box with a letter in it at somebody's house. Now, this is months before the second attempt on the former president's life. You know, the one at Mar-a-Lago or near sort of South Florida last week. This is the letter. It said, "Dear world, this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I am so sorry I failed you." You see the handwriting behind. We put it in a graphic in front so you can actually read it, but it was handwritten there. According to court filings, Ruth's cell phone was accessing towers near Trump International Golf Course, where this all happened, and the former president's home at Mar-a-Lago over a period of like multiple days, multiple times in the month before this alleged attempt. So from the middle of August through the middle of September. Police say he didn't fire any shots at the president earlier this month, but a Secret Service agent guarding the course spotted a rifle pointing out from behind some bushes about a hole ahead of where former President Trump was golfing. Ruth is now facing 2 charges. These are gun crimes. Park that for a second. We're going to get into why that's interesting. He's expected to enter a guilty or not guilty plea at his arraignment later on this month. Ken Delanian is joining us now. There was a lot in this, right? A lot of new information that we had not previously known until these court documents, until this hearing today. Walk us through some of it. We talked about the letter. We talked about how long he was apparently in South Florida, but that's not all.
Well, that's the part I find most interesting. Yeah. There was a mystery. How did he end up at the golf course on the day that Donald Trump was playing golf? Did he get tipped off?
Did he know? Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, he got there more than a month before and appeared to be staking out Donald Trump because the cell phone records show that he was at that golf course multiple times, also at Mar-a-Lago. So it appears he just got lucky. He was there for 12 hours. This is a man, according to all this evidence, that was intent on trying to assassinate the former president. They found a listing of places where Trump was appearing in public. They found all kinds of evidence there. You see the weapon. They found his fingerprints on that gun. So it appears to be a very strong case. And we're starting to learn about why he was dissatisfied with Mr. Trump. He's just expressed a lot of animosity. He was very pro-Ukraine. He tried to go fight.
It feels a lot of foreign policy.
Yes.
He's really focused in these letters, these writings about the issue of Ukraine and about the former president's positions in the Middle East.
Yes, 100%. So he really didn't like Donald Trump's views on things. And he also appears to be deeply disturbed and didn't have, he offered a $150,000 reward and he didn't have a dime to his name, apparently. So a lot of weird stuff going on.
I told folks to park the fact that he's facing these 2 gun charges now. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that these court documents lay out. Is it possible that he will face more charges now coming up soon?
It's not only possible, the prosecution said in court that the DOJ plans to file a charge of attempting to assassinate a former federal official. That carries a life term in prison. Now, that's become a political controversy because in the last few hours, the Attorney General of Florida has written a letter to the DOJ saying, wait a second, maybe you shouldn't do that because under that statute, they have to pause cooperating with the state. They don't turn over evidence to the state. And of course, Donald Trump is now criticizing the DOJ. Republicans in Florida are now getting in on that action. But from what I can tell, talking to my sources at DOJ, they're pursuing this vigorously and they intend to throw the book at this person.
What would be next here? What would be the next step? Would it be steps towards a trial?
Well, we're going to see probably potentially an indictment or at least some version of this additional charge, much more serious charge of attempted assassination. And then, he'll be held over for a trial.
Ken Delanian, thank you very much for following all those moving pieces to us tonight. So where is former President Trump right now? He's not at home in Florida. He is in Pennsylvania, that key battleground state, as we're just learning that he plans to return to the place where that first assassination attempt happened for a rally in just about 2 weeks, according to 3 sources familiar with his schedule. Yes, he will be back, we understand, in Butler, PA, according to those sources. So this is Mr. Trump in PA in the last couple of hours. It's an event for farmers, thus the tractors. He'll rally there tonight. And just look at the map from this week. He's also going to head to Georgia and Michigan. Vice President Harris will hit Pittsburgh before heading out west to Arizona and Nevada in between her day job duties. All of it, as the newest snapshot of this race shows the former president holding on in the Sun Belt post-debate. He's got some leads in Georgia and North Carolina, both inside the margin of error. Arizona just outside of it. That's as State President Biden won in 2020. Dasha Burns is in Indiana, Pennsylvania. Dasha, a lot of dynamics at play here tonight. Former President Trump is leading, according to our newest poll, on the issue of the economy. People see him as better equipped to handle that. That is also a place where the VP has closed the gap and something that we know voters care about a ton. No surprise, right? The former President Trump is in Pennsylvania, that she is going to be heading to Pennsylvania. Give us the reality check here on what you're hearing from folks on the ground and what this campaign looks like in this final 6-week sprint to Election Day.
Freddy's Pumpkin Pie Concrete and our new Caramel Apple Pie Shake are your favorite fall treats. Dine in or order online.
Four years ago, Suzette Valadares went to Sacramento to represent us. And in all that time, she's done basically nothing. She voted against millions of dollars for our local roads and schools. She spent our taxpayer dollars on mail to promote herself, while taking thousands in gifts from lobbyists. Suzette Valadares has done a whole lot of nothing.
So first, Hallie, you're absolutely right that Vice President Kamala Harris is closing the gap. Our NBC News poll shows that compared to when Biden was running, when it was Trump versus Biden, he was up 22 points on dealing with the economy. Now he's still up, but he's up by 9 points. So she absolutely is narrowing the margins there. And recently, some economists have come out with some concerns about the former president's plans. Essentially, the thrust of it is lower taxes, cut taxes, and then raise tariffs, hike up those tariffs. And some economists, including recently economists from Goldman Sachs, say they're worried that that could actually raise prices for consumers and potentially hurt American jobs. There are also still a lot of questions, Hallie, with some of his proposals, like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. So how exactly the former president's administration, if he were to win again, would pay for those things, Hallie?
So as we look at what the landscape looks like now, Dasha, as you're there at another Pennsylvania rally, you'll be at, I'm sure, a bunch of them between now and Election Day. There's also some drama in Nebraska with a key state senator there not backing a plan to change the electoral college rules in a way that would help Mr. Trump. And this is, I don't want to get into like my Kornacki vibes here, but the bottom line is that there is this funky kind of rule in both Nebraska and Maine that means they are not winner-take-all states. It looks like for this election, they will stay that way, right?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I'm not going to do a poor man's Kornacki for you. I just will leave that to Steve.
You could, though, girl. I know you could.
Look, get me a big board out here. Listen, Nebraska allocates its electoral votes by congressional district. It's not a winner-take-all. And you've got the districts where you see Omaha that tends to go blue. So there could be one electoral vote in a very red state that might go to Harris. And when we're seeing these super tight margins and all of these battleground states that could end up making a difference. So the former president's team has been trying to push the state legislature there to change it to a winner-take-all system. Well, one of the key people who would make that decision just came out saying that after deep consideration, it's clear to me that right now, 43 days from Election Day, is not the moment to make this change. That's State Senator Mike McDonald. So it's not looking likely that this change that the Trump campaign thinks might help them is going to happen before November, Hallie.
Dasha Burns live for us there in Indiana, Pennsylvania. Thank you very much. To Florida now, which is under a state of emergency tonight, as millions of people get ready for what could be a hurricane. Not just any hurricane, possibly a Cat 3 that could slam part of the Gulf Coast there. You've got the governor, you saw Ron DeSantis making that call just a few hours ago because this storm could get way bigger faster in the next couple days. We're looking at very dangerous storm surge up to 12 feet, possibly flooding. And if it does hit as a Cat 3, that would make it the strongest storm to hit this country this hurricane season. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is joining us now. Okay, top of the hour, we got the National Hurricane Center update. it is not yet a tropical storm, right, Bill? Is it just a matter of time until that happens?
Yes, it's in the organizing phase, so it's all about potential right now.
Okay.
And, it's pretty much almost like if you had like a stick of dynamite and then you had like a long lead to it and you light it on fire and it takes a while, but then it goes boom. That's what we expect to happen with this hurricane. It's going to kind of linger a little bit for the next 12 hours. And then as we go into tomorrow and then into Wednesday, this thing has a chance to explode over some of the warmest water on the planet. And that's the fear, is that we're going to have this really powerful hurricane and it's going to hit somewhere. And that's the big question, is now where is it going to go? So let me go back here through some of the maps and kind of show you what we're dealing with our forecast models. This is the path from the National Hurricane Center. Obviously, with a new update, they went from a strong Category 2 to a low-end Category 3, and they have that cone of uncertainty roughly just outside of Tampa and including the Panama City area, and then it will go up through Georgia with a lot of wind problems and rain problems there too. But what a lot of people are concerned with, what communities can potentially have that catastrophic damage when the eye comes on shore. So I want to zoom in here on that cone. Just because Tampa's not in it now, it does not take much of a jog to the east. We learned this lesson with Ian. The forecast for Ian 2 years ago that devastated Fort Myers was kind of similar to this, and then it shifted all the way down to Fort Myers. So again, we have a long time to go, at least 72 hours where we can get shifts out of this, and then we'll see the landfall. As of now, our hurricane models, these are these lines here, are mostly pointing anywhere from Panama City, Apalachicola, Tallahassee, Perry. Nothing is going directly at the west coast of Florida, but it's close enough that you have to stare at this, you have to watch it carefully and plan just in case. This is our American computer model. This is as we go through Thursday. Thursday's the day that we'll get the bands of rain on the west coast of Florida, storm surge problems with the morning high tide, and then as we go through about this time, 72 hours from now, is when we expect a landfall somewhere possibly in the Big Bend area, and there's going to be huge water issues. Now, that's not a huge population center, so we're not talking about a multi-billion-dollar storm damage, but we are talking about the possibility of those little small communities having a lot of problems and structural damage. So just as a reminder, Category 1 storms do moderate damage. We get some problems with shingles, you get trees that fall down, you get power outages. Once we get up to a Category 2, that's when we start getting extensive damage. That's when we start to having structural damage. And then, of course, once we get up to major hurricane, that's when the houses start falling apart, and that's where communities can be ruined, for months until repairs are made. So, Hallie, this does have a ton of potential to be a devastating storm, one we'll remember for decades, but it also has a chance to hit a very remote, swampy area, which is best case scenario for the amount of damage and the amount of people impacted, but for those small communities and the people that live there, it'll still be horrendous.
Yeah, no kidding. Bill Cairns, I know you're going to be watching that very closely in the next 24 or 48 hours. Thank you, friend. Some stunning new testimony tonight from the co-founder of OceanGate, who left the company 10 years before that